Honorable Speaker, I present the budget for 2023-2024. The fiscal deficit is estimated to be 5.9% of the GDP. I propose to increase the rebate limit to 7 lakh in the new tax regime. Thus, persons in the new tax regime with income up to 7 lakhs will not have to pay any tax at all.
नया बजट आपके सामने है। नए संकल्पों को लेकर के चल पड़े। 2047 में समृद्ध भारत, समर्थ भारत, हर प्रकार से संपन्न भारत हम बना के रहेंगे।
टैक्सेस बढ़ गए हैं, जो वेलफेयर स्कीम्स हैं जिसपे ये पैसा खर्च होना चाहिए था, सब्सिडीज पे जो पैसा खर्च होना था वो उस पे पैसा खर्च नहीं हो रहा है।
There was no mention of Manrega. What are we going to do about the poor rural labor? There was no mention of unemployment. There was no mention of inflation.
It's not only an economically power-packed budget, but it's also a humane budget.
टैक्स रिबेट वगैरह ये केवल जो है आंखों में धूल झोंकने के बराबर है।
Hello and welcome to the CNBC-TV18 Budget Town Hall. That sums up the mood that corporate India, economists, the markets and the common man have shown at the end of Budget 2023. It has been an unequivocally positive response across constituencies. Not too much to quibble about. There are, of course, some details in the fine print that have required clarifications, which we've been bringing you here on CNBC-TV18. But it is now time for the CNBC-TV18 Budget Town Hall. We will be joined by the Railway, the IT and Telecom Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw in just a short while from now. But I have with me leaders from corporate India right here at our CNBC-TV18 Budget Headquarters. Shardul, Shroff, Sanjiv, Bajaj joining us, Subhrakant, Panda, Rajiv, Memani, Zarin, Daruwala, Suneeta, Reddy, Subhrakant, Panda, Sinha will be with us shortly as well. And of course, I will be joined by Jayant as well, the chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance. So that's a good start that we bring Jayant into the conversation. Mr. Sinha, thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Appreciate your time. As I pointed out, you know, the former Revenue Secretary sitting right here beside me gave the budget 11 on 10, and the response across different constituencies has been positive. I think the biggest takeaway has been that while the government continues to do the heavy lifting on capex with a 33% higher allocation, it hasn't done so by deviating from its fiscal consolidation glide map, and the budget numbers by all accounts seem to be realistic and credible. Jayant Sinha, how would you sum up Budget 2023?
Shireen, you summed it up by saying that everyone is happy. This is a budget that I think is a very forward-looking and a very well-balanced budget. What is most notable is that even as we are stimulating consumption through a middle-class tax cut, we have also at the same time dramatically increased capital expenditures from 7.5 to 10 lakh crores. And we have put that capex in all the right areas. It's gone into green growth. It's gone into forward-looking industries like batteries, like smartphones, like electronics. And also we have worked on the empowerment of more vulnerable sections of society, for example, through cooperatives, for women self-help groups, for tribal communities. So it's that balance that is so elusive in budgets that this budget has been able to demonstrate. And I think that's why you're finding that everyone from the middle class to captains of industry to people living in far-off tribal villages are very happy.
Well, you know, that balance that you speak of, and you're absolutely right, given the many pulls and pressures as well as the uncertainty that we are faced with, especially as far as the global front is concerned, the balance is something that is hard to come by and hard to strike, but it's also been possible largely on account of what the government has been able to do on the tax front. And once again, by all accounts, it seems to have been more conservative in its tax estimates, and the expectation is that it will do better again.
Absolutely right, Shireen, and we must commend the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Finance Minister. They have navigated the ship of state through a very stormy and turbulent period when we've had, of course, a once-in-a-century COVID pandemic, and then we've had the war in Ukraine with a commodity price shock, and then we've had this very abrupt central bank tightening cycle that's also underway. Despite all the vicissitudes, the economic management has been absolutely outstanding. Yes, we have spent when we've had to spend, which is why the fiscal deficit went up. But when the stimulus was not required, the spending has come down. We've got a fiscal consolidation glide path. But most importantly, the prudence and pragmatism of our top decision makers is extraordinary because they have overachieved on all their numbers. If you look at where we are on tax collections, if you look at where we are on growth, on inflation, on all the important macroeconomic parameters, you will see that we have overachieved on all of the numbers. And that's why India now has this credibility globally, which really is part of the reason why everybody sees India today as the shining star in the global economy.
Well, yes, it is certainly a bright spot in terms of growth at this point in time, and that has been made possible on account of the kind of growth that we've seen and a projection of growth for the coming year as well. Zarin, Daruwala, thanks very much for joining us. To pick up from where Jayant left off, what will global investors take away from Budget 2023?
I think a very important thing has been the investment in infrastructure that we've seen, because for MNCs, what is important is that the logistics cost, which is high, is coming down thanks to the infrastructure, plus the integrated approach to infrastructure that we are seeing is also very important to reduce the friction in the logistics cost. And that, to me, will be a big fillip for manufacturing, more and more FDI coming into the manufacturing sector in India.
Yes, the hope is that we will be able to draw in more FDI into the manufacturing sector. Let me bring in our industry captains who are here with me as well. And Shardul, Shroff, let me address the issue of what you liked particularly in the budget. Because while we've all focused on the headline numbers, CapEx, railway CapEx, defense budget and so on and so forth, there's plenty of details outside of that as well. What did you like there?
I think the emphasis on new industries, emphasis on education, emphasis on health, legal aspects of resolution of matters between the MSME and also between government undertakings, the Jan Vishwas bill, which sort of reduces compliance, and the decriminalization process. So there's a lot if you look at it from even the perspective of a lawyer.
Specifically, since you brought up the issue of litigation and dispute resolution, the Vivad Se Vishwas 2 scheme that has been announced by the government, of course, we are waiting for the fine print in the rollout, but a graded settlement scheme is what the government has proposed. What do you make of that?
I think it's necessary because it's always in an inverse proportion. The larger the dispute, the lesser the percentage of claim which should be allowed or should be the same, because ultimately the financial outlay has to come from budgetary purposes, especially if government is to pay to a government undertaking. The reverse may be not budget bound, but it's something which has also got a sense of allocations for government undertakings. So it had to come on a graded basis. It could not have been 100%.
It could not have been 100%. Sanjiv, Bajaj, you've now pored over the fine print. This is the third time that I'm speaking with you this evening. I think that confusion or clarity that was required, even on the insurance side, I just had the Revenue Secretary issue that clarification. Does it seem like, it's not going to have any material change, material impact as far as the insurance space is concerned?
Well, the little that we have looked at it and I've talked to other colleagues, There is still some clarity required over there, but as the people in the ministry are telling us that this government is moving away from subsidies, from exemptions, and just to lower tax rates. So I guess it's par for course over there.
Well, yes, the clarification that's coming from the Revenue Secretary is that it will be on an annual basis, not the term of the policy, and it will also be on an aggregate basis. The Revenue Secretary seems to believe that it's not going to have any significant impact because the numbers within that bracket may be perhaps not that large. But of course, we will have to wait to see how the insurance sector digests that. Suneeta, Reddy, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. There's been a substantial increase as far as the health budget is concerned. Many other announcements coming in, 157 nursing colleges which will be co-located with the medical colleges that have been set up. For the healthcare sector, Suneeta, Reddy, on balance, what has Budget 2023 delivered?
You know, I think the government, if you look at the economic policy review, the government has already done so much for healthcare. And healthcare services is growing at 9%. So I think that alone is credible. If you look at the 157 skilling centers for nurses, much required nurses in our country, allocation for health at 90,000 crores is an improvement by 17% over last year. And I believe it's a meaningful allocation. The nuance of looking at sickle cell anemia shows that the government has really done its homework. And the fact that it's very equitable in the way that it is presented the budget, not only in the tax reform, but as well as creating access for tribal populations, for those who can now go to skilling centers. All of that, I believe, is increasingly going to help the Indian population. And I think the 90,000 crore allocation for health is a very good move by the government.
Yes, that certainly is a good move by the government. Rajiv, Memani, at the end of the day, is it going to keep the tax individuals like yourselves more busy, or there's going to be no reason for you to be consulted at the end of this?
No, I'm sure we'll be busy. We'll be busy because the economy is going to grow. We are entering the Amrit Kal. We'll be busy for sure. But I would say, if I have to pick up 2-3 key things, one is I think the moving to the new personal tax regime. I would think, Shireen, if you look at up to 15 lakhs of income, and if you were to assume there was no deduction on both sides, the tax impact of that works out to about 1,10,000, 1,12,000 rupees. So which means that your deduction should be around 4 lakhs. So my sense is those people who have income levels of up to 50 lakhs will probably be migrating into the new regime. Between 50 lakhs to 5 crores, if they are not availing HRA, if they are availing HRA, they'll probably stay with the old regime. And above 5 crores, I think most people will be migrating towards the new regime. That's the sense that we get. The second thing which I think, as we were just pouring through the details, I think the angel tax which was there earlier, which was meant for mainly for residents, this is really for companies issuing shares to non-residents.
Right.
I think there now they've applied to residents. Now they've included non-residents. So
right.
I think that may impact FDI, especially in terms of private equity, venture capital.
I'm going to just ask you to hold that thought because joining us now is the Railway, IT and Telecom Minister, Ashwini Vaishnaw. Mr. Vaishnaw, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV18. Sir, appreciate your time. Well, it's been a significant railway capex that has come your way through the budget. 2.4 lakh crore rupees being allocated, the highest ever as far as the railways are concerned. Mr. Vaishnaw, how do you intend to spend this?
So, first of all, I would like to thank Honorable Prime Minister for giving so much focus on railways. And this budget, basically, as we all know, in very troubled times, India has emerged as a bright spot. And this budget will make India as the growth engine for the world economy. And with respect to railways, the allocation for capital investment is 2.4 lakh crore, and this is a very good allocation. Railway has made significant progress. If you see 10 years back in the UPA times, basically railways used to do just about 4 kilometers a day new tracks. This year we are doing about 12 kilometers a day. So there is huge progress in terms of laying new tracks, doubling the tracks, making sure that the tracks are innovated. Then there is huge focus on redeveloping the stations. In Amrit Bharat station scheme, we have taken up 1,275 stations. Many of these are very large stations, many of these are medium stations, and many of these are small stations also. So such a large program for totally transforming railways, this is what this budget allocation means. Last year we took 3,000 kilometers of coverage. This year we are taking 5,000 kilometers of coverage. And as you are aware, the success of Vande Bharat train is like everybody is appreciating the train. And now we will ramp up the production. Currently the production is at ICF Chennai only. Now we'll add 3 more plants, one at Latur, one at Sonipat, and one at Raebareli to produce Vande Bharat trains. So there is a lot of excitement in railways, complete transformation of passenger experience, and rapidly increasing the cargo share which had gone down to 27% in terms of road versus rail. Now we have started climbing back, and last year it was 28%, this year it is likely to be 29% of the cargo share. So that way there is a lot of growth opportunities in railways, yes.
You know, speaking of those growth opportunities, and thank you very much, Mr. Vaishnaw, for telling us that 3 more plants will be set up for the Vande Bharat trains, Latur, Sonipat, and one more destination that you spoke of. But I also want to understand, you know, what are we talking about in terms of addition? There are reports suggesting that 400 more Vande Bharat trains could be added, etc. Could you give us some sense of what we can expect in terms of the pipeline? And also, a quick word as far as the railways' own performance is concerned, operating ratios, where do things currently stand, and how much better can you improve that, given what you just spoke of in terms of freight and cargo, etc.?
So there are 3 questions in your question, so I'll take all of them one by one. First one, in terms of Vande Bharat pipeline, when a new product is designed, we have to first test and make sure it becomes stable, and the supply chain also starts ramping up. So by now the supply chain has become very stable, the product is stable. Vande Bharat trains have, the 8 trains which are running, they have, like, if you cover the perimeter of the earth, then practically 52 times they have covered they have traveled around the earth. So that is the kind of magnitude of close to 45 lakh people have traveled. So now we have to ramp up the production. We are producing now almost 1 train every week or 8 days. And now we have to take this up to 3 trains or 2 trains every week very soon, very rapidly. So that is the ramp up we are looking at. And this is probably one of the highest ramp-ups anywhere in the world. So that is the close to about 400 trains are in the pipeline, and that's huge in terms of people who are manufacturing electrical equipment, people who are manufacturing FRP for the body, people who are manufacturing the mechanical equipment, all those things. Then the wheel set, the tender for manufacturing forged wheels in India has already been received. Very soon that will be opened and the winner would be announced. So lots and lots of manufacturing in railway sector happening in the country, absolutely in line with Prime Minister's Make in India vision. And over a period of 2 to 3 years, we should be seeing railway technology exports in good magnitudes all over the world. So that was the first part. Second, about the operations and financial performance of railways. As I said, railway was losing market share for a significant period of time because there was very little investment in railways. And the practices and everything which Prime Minister has reformed over the last 8 years, now railways started gaining back the market share. So from the low of 26%, 27%, 28% was achieved last year, and this year 29%. So with increased market share and adding close to about 300 million tons in the last 8 years as additional traffic, additional cargo, this has helped railway break even, and we are today able to meet all our expenses from the revenue which is earned out of railway. So for capex, yes, we are dependent upon the government budget. For opex, practically we are able to meet the entire expenditure. So that is where we stand. The coming 2 years will be really turning points for railway, because as we create more infrastructure, we are able to carry more cargo. For example, in terms of wagon, we placed an order for 85,000 wagons, right? So that was one of the largest in the world anywhere. So that has helped us induct about 150 new rakes. So all these steps together are helping us carry more cargo, carry more passengers, provide better passenger amenities. And one nice little small thing, very big in fact, Prime Minister gave us the target that the hydrogen train should be designed in India, made in India. So we started work on that, and this year by December, we should be able to roll out the first hydrogen train, and then we will manufacture using that technology for all the heritage circuits like Lonavala, like Uti, like Kalka Shimla, like Darjeeling, like Mathiran. All these places we will run hydrogen trains, and I mean it's going to be a very nice technological journey ahead.
Well, you know, Mr. Vaishnaw, I asked you 3 questions in one, and you've given me plenty of headlines in your response. The one, that the railways have achieved a break-even, so can manage the OPEX on the back of the revenue that they're generating. 2, that we're going to see India's first hydrogen train being launched by the end of the year, by December. And the 3rd big headline there on the Vande Bharat trains, 403 plants additionally that the government is looking to set up. I'm going to ask you to take off your railway minister hat and put on your telecom minister hat, Mr. Vaishnaw, and put a question to you as far as the capital infusion into BSNL is concerned. I think it's being pegged at just about 53,000 crores for FY24. Also, the revenue realization from the DOT being estimated at 89,469 crores. Achievable?
Absolutely achievable, and these reforms that Honorable Prime Minister did in the telecom sector. Today telecom sector is a growth sector, it's a sunrise sector. Lots and lots of investment is coming in. The BSNL capex that you're seeing, this capital investment will go for rolling out the Make in India Atmanirbhar Bharat telecom stack 4G and 5G. By end of 2023, BSNL would have rolled out made in India, designed in India, developed in India 4G and 5G technology stack. And I must tell you, the world is waiting for this solution. Already 2 countries during Davos met me and confirmed that they would like to roll out, deploy India's technology, telecom technology, as soon as we would have put about 20 or 30,000 sites in place. So it's telecom is a growth sector now. It's sunrise sector, and lot more innovations, lot more reforms, lot more investments, lot more employment in the sector.
And finally, I know I have to let you go, but I can't let you go without getting you to put on your 3rd hat, and that is the electronics minister's hat as well, Mr. Vaishnaw. And I promise you this is going to be the last question. The announcements that have come in the budget as far as the electronics sector is concerned, on balance, how confident do you feel about being able to continue to grow what we've seen happen as far as the mobile phone PLI scheme is concerned and more?
See, the budget announcement is very conducive, very helpful for the growth of electronics manufacturing. As you are aware, already we are at a situation, at a position where this year the mobile phone exports will touch about $9 billion. Mobile phone will become among the top 10 commodities to be exported out of India. Now the component ecosystem has started shifting to India. With the component ecosystem coming, the virtuous cycle of exports will actually increase dramatically now. It will be like hockey stick growth, and with the tailwinds in terms of policy and customs, the most critical component is lens, and the duty on lens has been reduced. So all these factors together, very stable policy, very good talent base, very good support from the government, huge employment getting generated in mobile phone manufacturing. All these factors together will see India emerge as the major mobile phone manufacturing and exporting sector. We are already #2 manufacturer in the world, and today's budget will give further boost to it. Thank you.
Appreciate you joining us, and thank you very much for closing out on headlines that you've given us here this evening. Appreciate your time, and we wish you the very best of luck. Well, gentlemen, I want to come back and address what we've just heard there from the Railway, Telecom and IT Minister, Vishesh Chandiok. Many thanks for joining us. Principled, bold, I know that's what you tweeted in terms of how you would describe this budget. But what is it that you believe this budget is going to do in terms of turning the needle? Where do you believe we're likely to see inflection points?
Absolutely. You know, I called last year's budget simple, consistent and aligned, and I was expecting this year's budget to be the same, but I think it went further. It was bold, it was confident, it was principled, just like you'd expect the first budget of this Amrit Kal. 3 reasons why I say that. I think everybody's talked about the fiscal glide path, everybody's talked about the inclusion, etc., etc. But I think 3 things that really stood out to me. One, progressive thinking. You know, at least in 2 places I saw really a progressive thinking. I've got school-going kids, and I've seen that loss of learning in the 2 years of the pandemic, and recognizing what that means at the bottom of the pyramid and doing something about it, leveraging digital, was clearly progressive thinking. I think second place, prisoners who can't afford their bail, was progressive thinking. If you look at the second thing, I think the catch-up. You know, AI is a place where we are behind the US, China, etc. The investment in AI, not just the 3 centers of excellence, but to do it in a way to also call upon the private sector, academia to participate in that is, path-making. Same thing on soft power. Yeah. You know, the data embassies in Gift City, the 50 tourist sites, something we've been promoting since 2017. And I think lastly, people were talking about a populist budget going towards elections potentially. I think it actually, some people will say there are measures which are potentially anti-populist. If you look at the reduction in the high income tax, if you look at what's done there, not enough. Probably more needs to be done there. To continue to get the high income entrepreneurs to continue to commit to India. I think, overall, that's why I call it bold, principled and confident.
Bold, principled and confident. That is Budget 2023 in the words of Vishesh Chandiok. Rajiv, Memani, sorry, I cut you off before we got to Ashwini, Vaishnaw. And that was an important point that you were making as far as startups are concerned, that NRI and resident Indian valuation metrics that they've changed.
Yeah, so no, they haven't changed it. I think it was earlier applicable to residents, and now they've made it applicable to non-residents. So if there is and they have excluded AIFs from that, but they have not excluded private equity funds and venture capital funds. So tomorrow if they were to subscribe, and if it goes to an income tax officer and he was to question the valuation of that, it just leads to more complication and confusion, especially in a time when we will be working hard to get more foreign direct investment. There are good reasons why the government has done that. My guess is that they may have to build some more protection so that it doesn't become very arbitrary with some of the tax officials and it doesn't create more confusion. But the logic of why they do, I mean, there are a lot of things that they've done basically, if you look at the financial instruments, where those were being used to reduce taxes, whether it was market-linked debentures, very high value life insurance. I think they've plugged that. There are some court decisions that came which were slightly different.
What about the changes on the LRS as well?
Yeah, LRS, I think they've kept education and health outside of it. It's an advanced tax. I mean, somewhere I do get a feeling that there are 2 things. One, the government wants to get a better handle. They still think, and rightly so, that there is that TDS and TCS probably gives them the best trail. So they want to be sure that that money is being, they're tracking that. Secondly, there are a lot of non-residents who have incomes here and who sort of use the LRS to transfer to do this. So I think they want to get a better handle on that. And thirdly, my guess is that they just don't like LRS. they don't like it. People do. They don't necessarily. I can understand. So I would say these are the 3 reasons. But at the end of the day, it has there is a procedural obligation. Yeah. There is an obligation because you're paying money in advance. But it doesn't cost you anything because, you know, it gets adjusted against advanced tax calculations.
Sure. Subhrakant, Panda, you know, you've had the day now to do a dipstick poll of what your members make of Budget 2023. What are the big takeaways? Is the membership feeling confident now of going out there, putting fresh capital in, adding capacity, especially across the sectors that have found their prominence in the budget?
Shireen, absolutely. I think there's been a lot of enthusiastic reaction to the budget, and clearly the headline from an industry perspective has to be the significant capex outlay. We have talked about that a couple of times already during the day, and I think when you look at the manufacturing sector and what India could have done to give it a boost. I think this probably ranks right up there in terms of the impact that this capex outlay will have, because it's not just job accretive, it is not just creating assets, but it is something which will have a knock-on effect throughout myriad sectors of the economy, and that's what we actually need, which is that all boats need to rise with the tide, and rather than have sector-specific allocations, I think this overall approach to asset creation, which provides an impetus to job creation, and when in place, will further enhance the ease of doing business, will reduce the cost of doing business. Zarin referred to it in terms of the logistics cost. I think that has to be the takeaway. But moving a little bit away from my comfort zone to talk about some of the other things, I think the approach to digitalization and particularly when it comes to the agri-stack, I think that is very significant. And I think the overall message there, which is that a tech-enabled, knowledge-based economy is what we are moving towards, and that's the sort of aspiration, that's the sort of broad thinking, big thinking that is going to take us to becoming a $5 trillion economy and more. And I'm glad that, in a manner of speaking, this budget really sets the template for what we can expect in the Amrit Kal. And this is something that the finance minister had referred to at FICCI's 95th AGM when she was there now in December of 22, which is to say that we'll build on the momentum of what this government has done over the last 7 or 8 years and set a template for Amrit Kal.
I think that was the opening comment, that this is a blueprint for what the government intends to do for India at 100. Rajiv Memani has also got a report for India at 100, and that pretty much mirrors a lot of what we've discussed as well. But Zarin, Daruwala, I know that you've been focused for the last several years on how do we get FDI to come into India, move away from destinations like Vietnam, etc. Do you think that in light of not just the decisions taken today, but the decisions taken over the last few years, in addition to the decisions taken today, that India today is much better poised as a location, as a destination for diversification of capital flows?
Yeah, I would agree, Shirin. But before I get to answer your question, I thought I'll just say that, to my mind, it's a 360-degree budget. And why I say 360 degrees, it straddles all segments of the nation, whether it's fishermen, tourism, MSME, middle class, upper middle class. So it touches almost everybody. And to my mind, that's really distinctive about the budget this time. In terms of focus of the government on bringing foreign direct investment, I think last year, if we look at the PLI numbers, we've seen almost 40,000 crores of investment happening through PLI, and about 3 lakh jobs getting created. I think the minister talked about the whole exports of mobile phones. So we're seeing bit by bit clearly the whole atmosphere being quite vibrant. For the MNCs, in Standard Chartered, I had my global management team come to India, and I've never seen them as optimistic about India as I saw them this visit. And one of the things that they picked up was that this is the first, after many years, they are seeing every segment of society and every segment and participant sort of aligned in their belief on the growth story of India. To my mind, that's quite significant.
Yes, it is significant indeed. We were in Davos just a few weeks ago, and that was the sentiment there as well. India, of course, an outlier at this point in time, both in terms of growth, but also in terms of being able to tackle inflation. So, Sinha, many thanks for joining us. Let's talk about the green focus of the budget, and there was plenty there. 35,000 crore rupees being allocated for the energy transition, a large part of that for retrofitting of OMCs. Your big takeaway as far as the green thrust of the budget was concerned and what it does for the transition.
Yeah, Shireen, let me first of all echo the words or the sentiments of some of my other co-panelists on the session. I too agree that this is a budget that has been able to pull off a fine balance between fiscal consolidation and encouraging growth. And it's been able to do that by really focusing on a number of sectors of the economy. And as Zarin said, it's really got something really in it for everybody, which is quite remarkable, actually. So I think really a budget that positions India well for dealing with a lot of the global uncertainties that exist, and also positioning India for long-term sustainable growth, which is going to be very positive. And especially in an election year, in a year in which there are so many global uncertainties, that's a pretty neat trick that the FM has been able to pull off in this budget. The green sector is another sector where there is quite a lot of meat in it. Clearly, the government has talked about the 35,000 crores of green transition for the energy transition that you talked about. In addition to that, of course, a couple of other programs such as the National Hydrogen Mission, which of course was announced earlier, but the FM did reiterate that and did again, sort of pledge to get to 5 million tons of green hydrogen per year by 2030, which itself, by the way, will require an investment of close to $200 billion over this time period. And then, the thing I liked about the budget was not that there was only stuff about the energy transition, but it really looked at the economy from a green lens and from a sustainability lens much more holistically. So, for example, there was talk about the mangrove, the MeiTY project that the FM talked about, which is really about mangrove plantations, and really in some ways taking forward the Prime Minister's vision of life, which is lifestyle for the environment, looking at circularity in the economy, looking at, for example, how to do waste to gas and so on. So there were a number of schemes like that which are really new in a way, and really I think go towards greening the economy in a more fundamental way beyond just the energy transition. And I think that was really quite interesting and quite positive to see.
Well, joining me now is also the former Chief Economic Advisor and now Executive Director with the IMF, KV Subramanian. He joins us all the way from the US. Mr. Subramanian, many thanks for joining us. We spoke yesterday on what the economic survey had put out, and today the budget pretty much taking that forward. And what has been the big headline is the focus on CapEx, but not deviating from fiscal consolidation. I'll put out the word cloud for you. Budget 360, bold budget, triple C budget that focuses on capital, on CapEx, consumption, credit. Those have been some of the ways that people have described Budget 2023. Over to you on what you make of it.
So for me, the key part has been that the, unlike in previous, instances like these, where this is the last full budget before the elections, there is extraordinary populism. I think that has been resisted, and that's very, very significant. Secondly, the emphasis on public capital expenditures, and this was part of the economic vision that India has adopted since COVID, starting from the 2021-22 budget. Now this is the third year in a row that actually it has been emphasized. So there's a significant continuity. And I think the articulation of the economic vision and the implementation of that, I think is significant. When I look at overall 4.5% of GDP together with incentives, given to states to step up CapEx, I think, you would recall that the 50-year loans were announced 2 years back. But this year, I think ensuring that, those can be availed only if it is spent by FY 23-24, I think is a very good step. Together with that, also the financial sector I think the ECJLS scheme had done spectacularly well as part of the COVID package, and I think doubling down on that through 2 lakh crores additional credit is, I think, good. I was looking at the economic survey data. Credit to MSMEs this year has averaged 35% plus, and I think this will give further boost to credit. To me, a fundamental reform, I think, which was mentioned, if you would recall, in the 2019-20 economic survey on the chapter on golden jubilee of bank nationalization, we had talked about the a registry for of data, financial sector data. We had called it the public sector banking network. The National Financial Information Registry is, I think, a step that actually captures that in spirit. I would wait for the details, but to me, it looks like a very important step because it will bring together data, and thereby reduce what we economists call asymmetric information, between lenders and borrowers. Together with the, measures take compliances and the consumption boost that must come from from more disposable income in the hands of the middle class. I think overall, many of the engines of the economy will actually start firing even higher with this budget.
Well, that is the hope and certainly the expectation, and by all accounts there is confidence that the numbers that have been projected in the budget will not just be met but perhaps will be beaten as well, and that is the expectation at this point in time. I'm going to get wrap-up comments from each one of you before I go back to KV Subramanian. Vishesh, on balance now, do you believe that this does enough to unleash the animal spirits, which have now started to, as the survey said, there are incipient signs of private capital formation? Does it do enough to really unleash the animal spirits?
Well, it certainly does nothing to contain them. And I think that was the big thing that industry's always said. Don't give any surprises. Certainly that 10 lakh crore, 33% additional push to infrastructure to continue to prime the economy, does that. I think, some of the things, even if you look at what I said, principled budget, insurance as an investment product versus insurance as purely life cover. The idea here is to want to tax it if it's used as an investment product. Buy insurance for that life cover. If you look at the CSR spend, again, is it really a business furtherance expense or not? So I think very clearly, I think if anything, it does not contain the animal spirits, and I think India Inc. has the animal spirits as long as we go back to that trust-based governance. That's the single most ask of India.
Shardul, Shroff, what do you believe the budget is going to do? The fine print is now done and dusted. We'll see what more emerges. But how does it really change things? Does it change the complexion, starting tomorrow?
I certainly believe so, because in my view, the ease of business angle, which government has always been talking about, has been attended to. You're clearly seeing issues of decriminalization taking place on a significant scale, not just the Companies Act and the Partnership Act, but across 42 laws. It's a significant change that is happening, and I think it's happening even in the Income Tax Act. Elements which were originally criminal consequences now are moving to a penalty and an adjudicating model. It will throw up issues in terms of training. It will throw up issues in terms of regulatory arbitrage. Those are the kind of issues that we'll have to be careful about. But certainly I agree with Rajiv when he says that this won't be less of accounting or less of lawyering.
You'll all be kept busy.
Oh,
You'll all be kept busy. But Suneeta, Reddy, how busy are you likely to be given the allocation, especially there as far as healthcare is concerned? And of course, the government saying very clearly that it wants the private sector to be a co-participant in the development across these sectors.
Yes, I think that is the most compelling part. The fact that we shall partner with the government, especially if you look at AI, where they said they will set up 3 centers which will focus on AI. I believe that this focus and use of data will prompt clinical decision making and make it far more effective. The second part, which I found extremely exciting, is the fact that skilling will enable us to provide medical manpower to the rest of the world, not only for India, but for the rest of the world. Like we were the back office in IT, I believe that in healthcare, India has a huge opportunity to provide healthcare to our citizens as well as people across the world, and at 1/10 of the cost.
Yes, that certainly is an advantage that we enjoy. But KV Subramanian, back to you. You talked about some of the things that you liked in the budget, and of course, I think what has gone down well, and the fear was that given the fact that this was the last full budget ahead of the election year, would there be any deviation on fiscal consolidation? That has not been the case. 6.4, 5.8, 4.5, sticking to that glide path, and very confident that they should be able to get to that number.
I think so. I was looking at the, both the revenue and the expenditure numbers, and I think that encourages me because the overall, if you look at the corporate and the income tax, it's projected to grow at 10.5%. You would recall yesterday we were talking about how the nominal GDP itself is projected at 11%. And I think a tax buoyancy of 1.2 is what has been obtained in recent years. So I think 10.5% less than the nominal GDP itself is a very conservative estimate. So which then, asks the question, how is it that the fiscal consolidation is happening? So for that, we have to go and look at the expenditures. And I looked at the expenditure. Total expenditures have grown only at 7.5%, of which the major bulk, which is basically the central sector schemes, centrally sponsored schemes and other central sector expenditure, which accounts for actually 72% of overall expenditure, in the budgeted estimates, have grown by 8.2%. And significantly, one of the, the establishment expenditure, which basically is salaries and other similar items, have grown only at 1%. So clearly, there's expenditure rationalization. And that is why, even with a significantly conservative estimate on the revenue side, I think the numbers look good. One point actually, which I will mention as a slight concern, which is I look at the the non-tax revenue that's been budgeted to grow at 15%, of which the other non-tax revenue, I presume that might actually include privatization proceeds, I guess, are projected to grow at 22%. I mean, these are a smaller proportion of overall revenue, but still, I think this is something which seems like a black box to me. So that's, so if I have to nitpick, I would actually nitpick only on that part, in terms of the revenue projection. So overall, I think the 5.9% fiscal deficit target should definitely be possible to achieve, especially if the even if the nominal GDP 11% and even a 1.1 tax buoyancy, I think that should definitely be achievable.
Tax buoyancy of 1 is what they've factored in as far as this estimate is concerned. But Sinha, I'll give you wrap-up comments. As far as your own plans are concerned, your own business is concerned, in light of the announcements made before the budget and now in the budget, how much can we expect an acceleration?
Well, Shireen, we were already going at more than top speed earlier. I don't know whether it's physically going to be possible for us to increase our speed anymore. But I would only say the following, that, just if you look at the macroeconomic issues with fiscal consolidation happening, hopefully that keeps interest rates under check. As the capacity of the economy grows, hopefully inflation also stays low. And as the economy grows, power demand, of course, will grow and energy demand will grow. And that, therefore, in some ways, really de-risks our growth quite substantially. It also decreases the friction costs of the economy with better logistics and so on. And that, therefore, will allow us to really be able to deliver our product, which is really clean energy, hopefully at a lower price to end consumers. And given the fact that energy is an input cost to every single industry, hopefully that allows all of the Indian economy to become more competitive going forward. And I think those are the kinds of things that this budget really tends to achieve, which is lower the friction cost, make India a more competitive place for manufacturing, couple that with the PLI schemes, couple that with the global decoupling from China to some extent, and really offers up India as a great opportunity for getting much deeper into manufacturing than has so far been the case.
Well, offers up India as a great opportunity for the world. I think that is a perfect note to wrap up the CNBC-TV18 Budget Town Hall. Sinha, Suneeta, Reddy, Zarin, Daruwala, Subhrakant, Panda, KV Subramanian, Rajiv, Memani, Shardul, Shroff and Vishesh Chandiok. Many, many thanks for joining us here on the budget evening, or budget night actually. We've been here through the day and through early hours of this morning, but we're not done yet. We still have more to go. So taking a quick break, and we're back after this N.K. Singh, the former chairman of the Finance Commission, the 15th Finance Commission, joins us. Ratin Roy will be with us as well. We're back in a minute.
Co-presented by